Nearly 24 people have been arrested after a wild scene involving dozens of shots being fired near a recording studio on Queen Street East or West overnight. Police say it has all the markings of a gang shootout. And as Ali Chiasson explains, the incident has rocked the neighborhood.
The gunfire came in waves.
I heard what I thought were maybe fireworks, but that seemed very odd. And so I went out onto my balcony and quickly realized it was gunshots.
Some witnesses say they heard upwards of 100 gunshots in quick succession. From their condo balconies, they also saw the car crash leading up to the shooting. Police say occupants of a stolen vehicle ran up on a group of people outside a recording studio. All this unfolding just before 11:30 at night.
I looked down and I saw the police chasing two guys, and they had jumped the tracks onto the GO tracks and they were running, and the police were chasing them.
Toronto police had been in the area for a different investigation at the time. An unmarked police cruiser was caught in the crossfire with two officers inside. Despite the melee, no one was injured, but the level of violence was staggering.
I'm here today to provide more details about a very dangerous incident that unfolded last night, which led to the arrest of 23 individuals and the seizure of 16 firearms.
Police zeroed in on a recording studio in this building, the one that was ambushed.
Officers also secured the recording studio, arresting several individuals inside as well as others that were trying to flee.
You can see from this video taken from a nearby balcony the stolen vehicle that had been boxed in out front and the people scurrying from the building around back.
It's like right in front of Boogie.
So this is the building where the studio is. I'm told there were multiple shooters. At one point, people were firing down from the staircases and the roof. They're shooting at people standing here in the alleyway. There are even bullet holes in the window of the Freshco.
It has all the signs of being a gang-related conflict, but that is still being investigated.
Among the 16 firearms that were found were 2 assault rifles.
That's even scarier now when you think of that. And with the weapons they apparently had, that something has to be done about that. And, they get them from wherever, and they're hard to trace.
23 people were arrested, and they face firearms charges, some for auto theft. Toronto police are looking for 2 others. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
The Toronto Police Services Board adopted a motion this evening guaranteeing the service the maximum number of officers that can be hired over the next 2 years. The move comes after years of protest from some groups in our city to defund the police, but board members say it provides both the police and the city some certainty as a new budget cycle approaches. Dale Manukduk has the details.
In the police board meeting, Councillor Shelley Carroll moved the motion for a multi-year hiring plan. It includes a 2-year commitment that allows Toronto Police to hire the maximum number of officers under provincial guidelines. And for the 3 years after, agrees in principle to increase the cop-to-pop ratio. That's a metric measuring the number of officers per 100,000 persons. Police Chief Myron Demkew says in 2010, the city had a ratio of over 200 police officers per 100,000 and are now down to the low 160s. The chief calls the hiring plan historic and unprecedented.
In my entire time as a police officer, I do not recall a time when we had this level of certainty going into towards the end of a budget cycle, and particularly having certainty beyond 1 year. We typically budget year to year. This year, we have a commitment of moving forward a budget, presenting it to our board with a 2-year commitment of tangible, understandable numbers.
Councillor Carroll isn't just a police board member, she also chairs the city's budget committee. Last year, the city and police were at odds over the 2024 budget. The city offered over a $7 million increase. TPS wanted $20 million to bring its total budget to nearly $1.2 billion. It cited poor average response times of 22 minutes. In the end, it got its full increase, and response times are down to about 17.5 minutes. Councillor Carroll says the deal handles the biggest issues of the police budget up front.
For years, I have watched us have the kind of conversation where we argue about the whole budget, and at the end of the process, it comes down to how many officers you get. That should be the first part of the conversation. That's what's different here this year. Let's decide what we want to be happening in our communities, what forces we want on the ground, and then we'll figure out how we surround them with the supports they need and stay within a target.
The hiring plan comes following years of some groups in the city protesting to defund the police. It's unclear how much of an increase the police will seek in the next budget. The Toronto Police Association says their members should be paid what they're worth. Chief Myron Demke says he'll present the full budget to the Toronto Police Service Board in December for consideration. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Brampton's mayor says the city has reached a tentative agreement with the union representing over 1,000 workers, ending a strike that disrupted services across the city. In a statement posted online, Patrick Brown says, "I am pleased that an agreement has been signed with CUPE 831, pending ratification, including a return-to-work protocol. We've offered a fair multi-year agreement, just like Mississauga's, that truly recognizes the hard work and dedication of our city employees," the mayor said. About 1,200 workers have been on strike since Thursday. Up in Markham, the OPP is investigating after reports of rocks being thrown at moving cars. Police releasing dashcam video showing the lead up to a crash caused by a rock throwing incident, adding that since September 20th, provincial officers have had 11 similar reports along Highway 48 in Markham, and York Police have seen 9 others. In the video, look closely at the left side of your screen. You can see the collision just happened there. 2 people were injured. 1 remains in hospital with life-altering injuries, while the other was discharged. Some staggering numbers reviewed by CBC Toronto paint a very troubling situation with Ontario's justice system. We've learned that more than half of the criminal charges laid by police in this province end up being tossed by our courts before being tested at trial. That has police, prosecutors, and victims demanding the province fix what appears to be a broken justice system. Sarah McMillan reports.
It's been almost 3 years since Emily Quint reported to police that she'd been sexually assaulted. Just over a year ago, the charges against her alleged assailant were tossed out, not because of the merits of the case, but because of court delays.
The stages of grief just flew through my body, flew through my mind. There was so much anger, so much sadness. It was like, who can I contact? What can I do? This can't be the end. What are you talking about? Disbelief.
The case had exceeded a strict 18-month limit to complete the trial. The charges were stayed because the charter rights of the accused had been violated. And her case is far from an anomaly. Data from Statistics Canada reveals a dramatic shift in criminal outcomes in Ontario over the last decade. The data looks at decisions made within the court system each year. In 2022-23, more than half of those decisions resulted in charges being thrown out without being tested at trial. That includes charges that are withdrawn, stayed, dismissed, or discharged before a decision at trial. That's up 14 percentage points from a decade ago. The trend includes even the most serious charges like homicides and sexual assaults. Sarah Crawford is with the Canadian Resource Centre for Victims of Crime.
It's problematic. It's an ongoing failure that we're seeing in the courts, and a lot of our victims and survivors are losing faith in the process.
Criminal charges can be dropped for a number of reasons, including when there isn't a reasonable prospect of conviction. Sometimes charges are also withdrawn when a person faces multiple charges and agrees to plead guilty to a lesser charge. But those working within the justice system tell us there are cases that should go to trial but aren't because of staffing issues and court delays. According to the province, last year 178 criminal cases were stayed because the case stretched beyond the time limit. The president of the Ontario Crown Attorneys Association says judicial vacancies, courtroom shortages, and more complex cases with lots of digital evidence are all contributing factors.
It's leaving my frontline crowns in a really difficult position. They are working tremendously hard. They care about these cases. They care about their complainants, and they care about protecting the public.
The Ministry of the Attorney General says it's investing millions of dollars to hire at least 25 new judges, as well as more Crown prosecutors. Kelway says that's a start, but not enough. Paul Patterson is with the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police. He says the current challenges facing the court system are disappointing and frustrating.
Public trust is lost when the system falls apart, and we want to do our part to work with others and make sure that justice can be served.
That trust certainly lost for Quint, who testified and was cross-examined before the trial was cut short. She says disclosing to police in the first place was difficult.
I think that pain that I had at that moment is nowhere near the amount of pain that I had throughout the 2-year process, where they finally said, like, Emily, it's over. It's like, why would you put me through all of that?
In written remarks after the charges against Quint's alleged assailant were stayed, the judge wrote that the issues at the Toronto courthouse that caused the delays were shameful and brought the administration of justice into disrepute. Sarah McMillan, CBC News, Toronto.
A new report has found food bank use in Toronto is at an all-time high, a nearly 40% increase over last year in terms of the number of Torontonians accessing food banks. The new data has people in the industry saying they are tired of their calls for help going unanswered. Tyler Cheese has more.
We've reached another sobering record. This record is a dismal one. It's unnecessary and it's unsustainable.
Local food banks are sounding the alarm once again with a massive rise in visits to Toronto food banks over the past year.
That number, 3.5 million, is startling, but even more frightening is that is an increase of 1 million client visits year over year. In absolute numbers, it's the highest increase in the province and the highest increase in our country and in our 41-year history at the Daily Bread Food Bank.
Cost of living and unemployment are the two main reasons people turn to food banks.
I was laid off from my job recently, and I got to a point where I couldn't afford, to be able to use any sort of means to be able to get extra groceries, because everything was basically used for my expenses, and I wasn't sure exactly where to go. So I just took my phone and Googled the nearest food bank location, and it literally happened to be 30 seconds away.
It's become a familiar story for many, and those running the food banks are frustrated that urgent action hasn't been taken.
We are all so tired. I am so tired. But more than that, I am angry because it doesn't have to be this way.
They're calling on all levels of government to step up with recommendations like increasing disability benefits and ODSP, investing more in children's nutrition programs, and creating and maintaining more affordable housing.
We cannot keep asking the same question and expect a different answer. Food banks are being asked to do impossible things. And so often, we are being asked to do them by the very people with the power to fix this.
In a statement to CBC Toronto, the city says it has several initiatives looking to address food insecurity, poverty reduction, tenant rights, and affordable housing. That includes a 20-year poverty reduction strategy that focuses on housing stability and other issues. A statement from the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services points to recent increases the province has made to minimum wage and ODSP rates. But advocates say those initiatives aren't working fast enough to keep up with demand. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
It's only mid-November, but the city is already kicking off the holiday season with a nearly 20-meter-tall Christmas tree arriving at Nathan Phillips Square today. Officials say it took about 8 hours to install and will need 3 days to settle before it can be decorated with more than 500 ornaments. Once it's ready, it'll be the centerpiece of the square's 58th annual Cavalcade of Lights. But before the holidays really take hold, there's another major event capturing a lot of people's attention. The Taylor Swift craze is officially here in Toronto. Fans not shaking off the excitement as they waited in long lines outside of Rogers Centre today to get their hands on concert merch.
I feel so great. I got here at 7:30, and we were waiting in line from 8, and it was so cold.
In line, we met like these amazing Swifties from like all the way at the other side of Canada, and we met so many friends in line and just trading bracelets with people. Like the fact that we're all here for one common goal is like so incredible.
Gotta love the dedication. Fans will be able to purchase merchandise on show days as well as select non-concert days like today between 10 and 8 p.m. The highly anticipated first concert takes to the stage this Thursday. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Premier Doug Ford waded into international waters today, accusing Mexico of allowing Chinese goods to circumvent North American tariffs and suggesting Canada and the U.S. strike their own bilateral trade agreement. Lane Harrison explains why.
It's ridiculous, and they're undercutting the market.
Premier Doug Ford sounding off on Mexico today, accusing the country of allowing Chinese cars, auto parts, and other products into Canadian and American markets.
What I'm proposing to the federal government, we do a bilateral trade deal with the U.S., and if Mexico wants a bilateral trade deal with Canada, God bless them.
Ford's comments come after the president-elect Donald Trump has vowed to review the U.S.-Canada-Mexico trade agreement, and one expert says he doesn't expect Ford's suggestion will come to pass.
Doug Ford has absolutely no say or not, right, in whether or not Mexico stays in the agreement or not. I don't think that's likely. The United States may have plans for Canada and Mexico in this renegotiation period of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement. But it's certainly nothing indicates that the Trump administration would be interested in kicking Mexico out.
The man who does have a say in international trade policy responded to Ford's idea Tuesday.
All of our partner democracies around the world have expressed varying degrees of concern about Chinese overcapacity, around unfair trade practices that the Chinese economy is inflicting on the world, and we're all working in different ways to try and prevent that.
American officials have raised concerns about Chinese-owned car plants popping up in Mexico, which, in a worst-case scenario, could see the companies exploiting the North American trade agreement to send low-cost EVs north without hefty tariffs. Ford says the situation could threaten the livelihood of Canadian and American workers, while Canada's auto parts lobby hopes everyone can come to an understanding.
But a lot of Canadian companies are heavily invested in Mexico to make parts for cars where our customers, our car maker customers, want us to. And so we'd like to see Mexico solve that issue satisfactorily for Washington and Ottawa so that we can all continue making cars all together.
In making his statement, some think Ford may be trying to deflect America's attention.
We have a Trump administration just taking shape. A lot of the old protectionists, the tariff-friendly people ending up back in there. And so, you know, he's probably trying to get some kind of message out, either from his perspective, from Ontario, or perhaps a Canadian perspective, right, on where the real threats are. Right, to the U.S. economy.
That expert adds that Chinese electric vehicles likely won't end up in the U.S. because of security policies, which ban vehicles with Chinese software from the country. Lane Harrison, CBC News, Toronto.
Meantime, Ontario Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie has unveiled a major policy plank for the next provincial election, promising new tax cuts if elected premier.
Doug Ford thinks a one-time $200 check makes up for the cost of living crisis that he created. Well, I disagree. So today I'm here to announce that when I'm premier, I'm going to stop the giveaways to Doug's friends and cut your taxes instead.
So Crombie is promising an income tax reduction for middle-class Ontario families and the elimination of the HST on home heating and hydro bills. She says the move could save middle-class families more than $1,000 every year. Premier Ford has not ruled out calling an early election next year. The City of Toronto celebrated the creation of 92 new affordable housing units today.
I'm proud to say that many of these units, including these right here at 65 Dundas Street East, will serve low-income Torontonians with diverse needs right here in Toronto Centre.
According to the city, 65 Dundas Street East is the largest shelter-to-housing conversion project in Toronto. The old Bond Street Hotel site will be home to new studio apartments and one-bedroom units, and construction is expected to be complete by next spring. Time now for a check on weather with Chris Potter. And Chris, it was a beautifully sunny day, but definitely chilly.
Yeah, you could definitely feel it.
Yeah.
Northerly winds, the main culprit. And there was a huge difference, especially in the city, when you're walking on the sunny side of the street versus the shady side of the city. So in terms of what's going to happen tomorrow, no rain. There will be a little bit more cloud moving in. But it's not going to be a wet weather day. It's still going to be a bright weather day. Most of the cloud moving in, we call it cirrus, wispy clouds. Everyone knows them. They're high-level cloud, and that's what we're going to see moving in for tomorrow. Still a fair weather day, beautiful day. We'll talk about the stats. Normal daytime high for this time of year is around 7.8, and we actually hit that for the most part, around 7.4, 7.5. 19.7 was the record. Wouldn't that be nice? 7 for tomorrow, for today's highs, rather. It's 7. 6 for Peterborough, 4 through Barrie, and Windsor was around 9. Now, in terms of what is happening active weather-wise, not much to really point out. We have this large area of high pressure controlling the weather across the entire region. The winds circulate clockwise around high pressure. So as it moves east of the upper Great Lakes, we have those northerly winds. But as it continues to track further towards the east through tonight and into the day tomorrow, we get into easterly winds, which won't necessarily boost our highs, but it's still going to be a beautiful weather day. Mostly sunshine for the most part in the morning. Once we get into the afternoon, here's that high-level cloud spilling in as the next system begins to move in through Illinois. It will continue to move its way in towards lower Michigan, and there is going to be some significant rainfall potential, at least towards Windsor. But as this feature continues to migrate east, you'll notice the precipitation, the rain, will break apart significantly. So instead of heavy rainfall, we get showers primarily afternoon and evening for Thursday in the GTA, morning and early afternoon down towards Windsor. And once we get through Thursday night and into Friday, that feature is still in place south of the lower Great Lakes, but all we're going to see is cloud cover from that feature. Winds will be light as we step forward into the beginning stages of the overnight. They'll pick up a little bit into the day tomorrow as they become more east-southeasterly, and we could feature wind gusts upwards of 45 kilometers an hour. 0 for tonight in the city, a little bit cooler to the north, and that's not including the winds. It's probably going to feel anywhere from -2 to -4, basically at sunrise for tomorrow, so keep that in mind before sending the kids off to school. 7 degrees your high in Toronto. 10 for Windsor, and once again, that's fairly seasonable for this time of year, so we can't complain too much, but I know some people will. Sunny side of the street, folks. 9 degrees for us on Thursday, afternoon, evening showers. Friday, mostly cloud cover in the afternoon, dry though, highs near 10. The weekend looks stellar, lots of sunshine for Saturday. Chris, 12 degrees, and then 11 for us on Sunday with increasing clouds. So the weekend looks fantastic. Once again, 7, the normal daytime high. We'll take double digits.
We have been spoiled with this weather recently. All right, thank you very much for watching. Have a great night, and we'll see you again later.